Hello, thank you for taking time today to talk about vocabulary acquisition. My name is David Rudy, and this is for RES 5153 Research Methods with Dr. Ortiz. Why is it important for kids to learn new words? Well, vocabulary acquisition is a challenging endeavor for students and educators to tackle. It's a question that has bewildered students and educators for decades. For many educators throughout the United States, it has become a daily occurrence for a child to ask A, what does that word mean? Or B, what is the word for that thing? It's important to remember that there's a direct correlation between words and thoughts, just as there's a direct correlation between thinking and writing. According to scholar Janet Emming, writing is thinking on paper. Why our action research today with vocabulary acquisition will probably fail is, according to Cartwright and Schoenberg, despite growing interest in recent developments in the area of organizational change, evidence suggests that almost 70% of all change measures fail in the organizational change management context. So it seems clear and self-evident that vocabulary acquisition is something worth studying further. However, if you try to implement a quick initiative, there's a large chance that it could fail. Our main problem, how do we effectively teach kids new words? And if we look at the white paper, How Can Educators Help Kids Learn New Words, written by myself with the help of Dr. Ortiz, we can see quite a bit, right? And again, according to Umertachi, active learner engagement can lead to better educational outcomes, especially when it comes to learning unfamiliar words. And in this essay, in this action research paper, we have some important, again, research questions that we are looking at discussing. What can a teacher do to help the students in front of them acquire new vocabulary? How can teachers help students conquer this common core standards thread? Demonstrate understanding of figurative language, relationships, and nuances in word meanings. We're going to talk a little bit more about the why in common core in about 30 seconds. And how can teachers help students better utilize dictionaries, thesauruses, and other tools to better understand the meaning of words, along with how can teachers help students have success with the following common core standard thread: acquire and use accurately grade appropriate general academic and domain specific words and phrases, gather vocabulary knowledge when considering a word or phrase important to comprehension or expression. So as we go back here to the why, a big part of our why does come from the Common Core State Standards. And again, this thread of vocabulary acquisition and use is important for all educators. We need to be able to determine and clarify the meaning of unknown or multiple meaning words and phrases by using context clues, right? BK plus TC equals I, right? Our background knowledge plus text clues equals our ability to make an inference, analyzing meaningful word parts, and consulting general and specialized reference materials, right, as appropriate. So what does it take to use and acquire new words? And how can this be effective for educators? When we think of words, when you think of words that you are using to teach students, to teach kids, the Common Core does a nice job of dividing them into Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 words. Here's how those words can be sort of woven into all literacy curriculum. An example of a Tier 1 word is just a foundational word. These words help us build upon other words like dog, eat, education. And an example of Tier 2 words, right? Masterpiece, benevolent, true blue, underdog. We can see, right? Underdog is taking the word dog and adding something to it. Those tend to be more challenging, obviously, than Tier 1 words, but low frequency subject specific words, right? So those would be words, phrases, right, that are specific to a subject that a teacher may be teaching, a phrase like edification, right? Building on that tier 1 word, education, right? Building on that tier 2 word, masterpiece, edification, right? It's a low frequency word. Not a lot of people do use that word. And then that phrase I wanted to point out, wag the dog, right? Again, it's a phrase, but building upon that tier 1 word, dog, the tier 2 word, underdog, right? Helping students be able to tackle some of those words with a little bit more intensity can really help. And going back to the research, we see here a good model that all teachers can use in all subject areas to help, especially with tier 3 words, would be the Frayer model. This model is a pencil and paper based activity where students are writing down the dictionary definition of the word, characteristics of the word, drawing a picture of the word, and then of course using non-examples, which would be things that are antithetical to the word. Here's a list of some references that were used in this presentation. Thank you again for your time today, for thinking more about vocabulary acquisition, what it means for the future of our students. As we look at the action research, we can see that there are a number of different tools, whether they're technology-based, with things like commonlit.org or vocabulary.com, or pencil or paper-based, like activities like mind mapping or with the Frayer model. We all want the best for our kids, and something that is important to remember is that while there may be different ways to get there, again, using that pencil and paper activity like the Frayer model versus using vocabulary.com, there are a lot of different ways that we can accelerate learning outcomes. Thank you much for your time.